What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today I want to talk to you about Faraday future tickers FFIE. I'm going to give you a good breakdown of the data points, technicals, and everything else that you need to know, and potentially where things might be going next week. So before I do, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. Without further ado though, let's get right to it. So based on Thursday, it did close green, so 0.74% in the green. But as you can tell based on the intraday, it was very much volatile. And this is very much linked to shorting. So I'll give you guys a quick overview of that. But as far as what to expect going into next week, there is, for instance, the annual shareholder meeting on April the 14th at 11 o'clock. So definitely that might be positive or at least result in something positive. But outside of that though, there's a lot of big economic data points coming out that could cause a little bit more volatility. CPI being one of them that is coming out on Wednesday. There's also PPI on Thursday and retail sales on Friday. And in reality, I think retail sales is going to be the biggest attributing factor outside of CPI for Faraday. So of course, just be aware of that. And based on this, there's currently 28% short interest, and that's a percentage of the free float being shorted. So that's pretty significant. And that does work out to be about 160.4 million shares being shorted. Cost to borrow doesn't really show anything right now because the market was closed on Friday, so it kind of reset. But as you do see right here, 6.17% is what Interactive Brokers, for instance, is charging. So, of course, it is what it is. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But like I've mentioned in the past, Faraday, in theory, does have everything possible to have a good squeeze. It's just been missing out on one thing. And that one thing, for the most part, is that surprise catalyst. So, unfortunately, even with them ramping up on production, what was announced a couple of weeks ago, based on my last update video as well, it doesn't seem to really help. There's a lot of people just very much doubtful, for instance, on Faraday. And given their basic balance sheet, it kind of is a little bit more concerning. So once again, just based on their last earnings, they have $16.97 million in cash equivalent short-term investments. Total debt is $68.03 million. And they've, of course, just recently passed, I believe it was at the beginning of this month or the tail end of March per se, during the actual special shareholder meeting, they did approve of a little bit more of an additional dilution through a lot of the insiders, if I remember correctly, but they are burning through $383.06 million every quarter. So they do have their back against the wall right now. And I think it's been like that for a while now. But generally speaking, I think a lot of people are very optimistic, especially as well if you do look at, for instance, the options activity. So the options activity that did occur on Thursday, there was a lot more calls being purchased, insinuating that potentially this might be the bottom and things might be able to be trending up from here. But of course, like I always say, options activity doesn't necessarily move the stock price. It's just a little bit more of a sentiment. And as far as this, there's been no big transactions since it looks like the Wednesday on the 5th, and that was for $136,000, and this is on the secondary market. And as far as dark pool transactions for Faraday, I will just pull that up. There's been no transactions, it looks like, since April the 3rd. And keep in mind, both of those searches was over $100,000. So it doesn't mean that it's quiet or dead or anything. But again, it is what it is. When it comes down to the technicals are going to play a very big part in, for instance, this upcoming week, because it's been very poor lately and it's below a lot of the pivotal moving averages, lower percentile of the Bollinger Band. And as of right now, stochastic is currently at 3, which is considered mind-blowingly oversold. So potentially, like I said, it could have something very positive behind the scenes that causes it to go up. It just needs that catalyst and justification. And in reality, I don't see that happening from the shareholder meeting. So it has to be something outside of that. And number of retail investors, it does appear that they are getting out. So of course, maybe they're just done with it, pulling the trigger and selling at a loss most likely, because this is close to the all-time low for Faraday. But what to expect going into next week? It is currently trading between the S2 and the S1 based on the fib levels. So that is the very big support level, very big resistance level. So 32 cents is something that you need to watch for potentially this week. And there is a lot of good data points coming out, like I said, that could give not necessarily just Faraday, but the broader market a nice rally that hopefully should also incentivize shorts to get out. So of course, I think it's all very much linked. Like I mentioned, I don't really see anything coming from the shareholder meeting per se, but if I remember correctly, I think it's just all very basic stuff. One positive thing before I touch and go into the technicals a little bit deeper, there is that time of season that a lot of institutions are disclosing their positions to the SEC. Surprisingly enough, like I mentioned, I believe it was on March the 17th, this is where there was a huge influx of volume. So big money shows that they were buying Faraday. And like I mentioned at the time, most likely it had to do with a lot of institutions rebalancing their portfolios. And a similar kind of fluctuation did occur near the tail end of also December. And as you can see right here, it does appear that a lot of big institutions kind of were rebalancing. And for instance, even with the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, increased their position 118%. So they do have a total of 6.1 million shares, 2.5 million right now, and that is based on the Vanguard Extended Market. So most likely when Vanguard does disclose their actual true 13F, either at the end of April or potentially first week of May, this is where most likely they'll have increased their position. Whereas BlackRock, from what you can see, they probably did increase theirs, but at the same kind of fashion, there's a lot of their ETFs that did completely get out of, for instance, Faraday. So you do see a little bit more of a mixed kind of result there. So Vanguard clearly sees a lot of optimism with Faraday, whereas BlackRock not so much. But like I said, based on this, these are the points that you need to watch for this upcoming week. So around the 26 cent versus the 32 cents. And in reality, I see it testing the 32 cents this week, but I don't see it having enough to potentially get over that unless there is a surprise piece of news that does come out that causes a little bit more of a squeeze factor as well. But even outside of that, if it does get past that 32 cents, then it's going to be that 43 cents. That is the very strong resistance, and that is the pivot point in general. So I think generally speaking, the market is kind of tired of the bearishness, and this is why you do see a lot of value investors very hesitant to save stocks such as Faraday. But of course, I could be wrong. I'm not a financial advisor, so make sure you guys do your own due diligence at the end of the day. I know Faraday does have a lot of big fans of it behind the scenes, so this is why I always like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And these videos, I'm just stating the points that I do see in my interpretation of that. So this is why you do see, for instance, the options activity fairly optimistic. You do see, for instance, the short data kind of a little bit more of a potential red flag. This is kind of mixed, like I said, so you kind of get it all over the place. So I think in general, people do not know what the actual outcome of Faraday is going to be. Are they going to dwindle down to virtually zero, or is it going to get better? Typically, the best rule of thumb is that you buy when there is a lot of blood in the market, but I think that's been the case for Faraday for a while now, especially if you look back at the actual chart. Ever since it broke around the $2 mark around here, there's been just a lot of fear in the market for Faraday, of course. But no matter what, let me know your thoughts on Faraday in the comments below. Where do you see things going, for instance, by this week? Or is there something else that potentially might be coming out operationally that maybe I missed? So definitely let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. If you do like my Faraday content, support the channel, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. One final thing I just wanted to share with you that I've brought up over the last couple of videos as well. There is a good promo with Moomoo, link in the description below and also the comments. Just sign up for a free account and you get one free stock. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So even though Faraday is kind of flat, a little bit more red, take advantage of free stuff while you can. Plus, if you open up an account, $0 commission and free level 2 data. So kind of a no-brainer. Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments below. And without further ado, I appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Faraday Future.